Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Today, I want to talk about glow-in-the-dark material, or lume. Now, with some watches, lume is quite a selling feature. You know, the watch companies will brag about superior lume on their watches. Most of my watches are Casio watches, and I've found that, generally speaking, Casio watches are, well, not the greatest lume. For those of you that are lume aficionados, probably Casio is not your favorite kind of watch. But if you're lucky enough to have something like this, a black light or UV light, or even like a flashlight version of it, then you can kind of keep that lume charged up really well. Now, I could probably go into the physics of how this all works with photons and phosphorescent material and all of that, but I think we all know from just maybe from childhood that when you have something that glows in the dark, what you do is you expose it to light, and then it will continue to glow for several minutes after it's been exposed to light. And if you're lucky enough to have a black light or some sort of UV light, then of course it almost instantly becomes something that'll glow at full power. So that's kind of fun. And of course, if you have a black light, you can have fun making other things look interesting under this special light. Yeah, you ever do this when you got together with your friends and someone had a black light? I want to be a dentist. I should do a whole episode this way, huh? Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Huh? Maybe not. So, of course, you have your magic beads, and if you can shine a little light on those, that charges them up really well. And wow, look at that, my magic beads. Or maybe this Power Packs Storacell battery holder that I have. That looks really, really nice when I charge that up, and then I can see all my batteries in the dark. But as far as how does this work, I don't want to get too deep into the physics and all the scientific terminology, but basically you have phosphorescent material, and that allows it to kind of, in a sense, store some light and reflect it back after it's been exposed to a light source. And, well, some of the watchmakers decided to get really clever about phosphorescent material. Instead of requiring you to expose it to some sort of light source in order for that to be charged up, as it were, to reflect the light back out, they actually were able to mix in some radioactive material inside with the phosphorescent material on the watch. So, radium or tritium, these things actually are radioactive, and that's just enough radioactivity to keep the phosphorescent stuff glowing without any particular light source outside of, just that radioactive material. So that worked great if you were diving, and you're deep under the ocean and you've been down there for a while and your watch is still glowing as though you had just shined one of these on it just a second ago. That's great, but it turns out that it was enough radioactive material to kind of make it a little bit of a concern. Now, lately, I've heard that there's like this super luminova material, something that's been developed in Japan that actually works pretty well. You can charge it up, with a light like this or expose it to sunlight or whatever, and it will stay bright for a much longer time, and again, not have the radioactive material in that. So watch for that in some of the fancier watches, especially the watch companies that really brag about their ability to have great lume or glow-in-the-dark material on their watches. But, as I said, Casio, not the greatest, but, I can still look at some of these, and I think it's fun to see the different ways that Casio has decided to make their watches glow in the dark. These are not expensive watches, and for me, kind of looking at a watch in the dark is sort of a novelty. Plus, of course, it's not that difficult to have some lights built into the watch, and so I don't really need the glow-in-the-dark material to be all that fancy, and I don't really want to spend a whole lot of extra money to get fancy glow-in-the-dark material on my watches. But it's interesting to see how they've done the luminous material on some of these Casio Wave Scepter watches. This one over here actually is not a Casio, but it's kind of fun to see how they've put a lot of good lume on the hour and minute hands on that watch. Now, these are Casios again, sometimes just with little dots or dashes around the dial, and lots of good lume on the hands of these. But again, it's not going to stay super illuminated, after a few minutes if you don't have one of these fancy lights shining on it all the time. I like how some of these have the numbers that are completely covered in luminescent material, and those look nice and sharp in the dark. Now these over here are some of my favorite G-Shock watches, and it's interesting to see how they've decided to set these up. So some of them have a lot of Lume material on here. These are the AWG M100 analog G-Shock watches. But then some of them, especially the ones with kind of the darker, darker displays, see that has a lot of orange accents when you put it under the UV light. But then what's left to glow in the dark is just the tips of the hands on, this one here, and that one there, and then some of these other ones with the darker faces on this particular model just have the tips of the hands are the only things that light up under this UV light. I bought some very inexpensive Casio watches, and they're okay, especially considering the price on the glow in the dark material they've decided to include with these guys. Okay, these are all very inexpensive, affordable non-G-Shock watches. There's my Casio Duro watches. That's pretty good Lume as far as that goes. So for just a few minutes, and again, some really inexpensive, Walmart special, very cheap watches as far as the price goes. High quality. And then these are a couple of my favorites, ProTrek watches. And these are kind of premium watches. They do cost a lot. Now this one over here has a lot more Lume material on the dial, and this one just has it on the hands. In other ways, these watches are very, very similar. And they have lights on them, which are pretty interesting too. So if I push on this, and that's a nice bright light there that has a little bit of light that comes up onto the face and also lights up the LCD right there, LCD screen. And this one, in a lot of ways, looks even better because, I don't know, they've got this special material on the hands that lights up almost a different color when this special, super illumination kind of light is on there. So I think it's called Neo Bright. Actually, they call this Neo Bright on here. So this is probably, my most impressive Casio when it comes to the Lume. But I also wanted to show you, this is my newest Casio AWG M100, part of the Fire Package series for the year 2020. Of course, it's got the standard backlight there. That for these AWG M100s, the backlight isn't all that wonderful as far as, you can't really see the LCD screens too well. But what really intrigued me about this, let me just charge this up. The tips of the hands, they light up, and they light up in a different color. That's kind of, the whole watch has sort of an orange theme to it. And it's kind of fun that they've got that yellow-orange glow on the tips of the hands. And so I thought, well, that's the first Casio watch I've seen where the glow-in-the-dark material isn't some shade of green or maybe just a hint of blue. I kind of like seeing that yellow-orange stuff on there. So I thought, well, that's a lot of fun. Anyway, as I said, generally speaking, I don't rely too much on the glow-in-the-dark material on these watches. It's just more decoration and fun to play with that, but it's not something that's going to make or break it for me as far as, oh, no sale for me because, the glow-in-the-dark material is not impressive enough. But anyway, just a little something to, this is what you could expect with some of these Casio watches when it comes to Lume. And so that's all for now, and I hope you will join me again soon for another new episode of The Good Timekeeping Show.